Hey guys, welcome back. This is Mr. Morales, and I'm going to be discussing our first 9 weeks exam for 7th grade. So let's jump right into it, shall we? First, I'm going to begin with problem number 1. We are given the two-step equation of 4x plus 6 equals 34. So let's go ahead and just show you how to solve it. I'll begin first by making my little window here so I can put all my work. If you're making corrections, you should be doing this on a separate sheet of paper as well. If you make corrections, we will allow you, that's Mr. Andrade and myself, will allow you to retest for the first 9 weeks as early as Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, or at the very latest Friday morning. After that, grades are locked down for this first 9 weeks. So in order to retest, you need to do the corrections and then come back in either Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. Having said that, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So we have our two-step equation, which is 4x plus 6 equals 34. First thing we want to do is look at what's happening to our variable, which is x. X is being multiplied by 4, and then it is being added by 6. The inverse of those two operations is to divide by 4 and subtract 6. These are the two steps we're going to use to solve our problem. According to our notes that we took about 3 weeks ago, we always want to get rid of any addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides. I'll subtract it from the left-hand side of the equal sign and from the answer on the right-hand side. When I go ahead and do that, 4x drops down. Plus 6 minus 6 is 0. My equal sign drops down. And 34 minus 6 is 28. So now I've taken care of this first step. I need to do the second one now, which is to divide by 4. I'll go ahead and divide both sides. I wish I wanted to use a different color there. Go ahead and divide both sides by 4. And when I do that, 4 divided by 4 is 1x. 28 divided by 4 is 7. When you grid it in, you'll have a decimal point in one column, and the 7 should have gone right here with your 7, whatever it is, bubbled in. So 7 point was the answer for number 1. Let's go ahead now, and let me clean this all up, and we'll scroll on down to the second question on this exam. So question number 2 is the same type of question. It is also a two-step equation. This one says 2r minus 18 equals negative 10. I'm going to make my t-chart to describe what's happening to r. r is being multiplied by 2 and subtracted by 18. The inverse of those two things is to divide by 2 and then add 18. These are the two steps I'm going to follow. We always get rid of addition and subtraction first. So in this case, I'm going to add 18 to both sides. I'm going to add it here and here. The 2r drops down. Negative 18 plus 18 is 0. Equal sign drops down. Negative 10 means I owe $10. Plus 18 means I have $18 to spend. After I pay the $10, I'm left with 8. Now, all I have left to do is to divide by 2. So I'll divide both sides of my equation by 2. And I end up with r equals 4. When you grid that in also, wherever your decimal point is, the 4 should have been the first number next to it. And then, of course, you have to bubble it in as well. And that is number 2. Let's move on to our next problem, which is also another two-step equation. So let's get this set up. And we'll just solve this the exact same style we did the other ones. Now, the only difference is that my answer is on the left-hand side, but that will not change a thing. I'm going to make my t-chart to describe what's happening to x. It's being multiplied by a minus 2. And it is also, we have a 20 here that's in front. Since there's no sign, we know it's positive, so we have a positive or plus 20. The inverse of those two things is to divide by negative 2. I'll put it in parentheses. And to subtract 20. These are the two steps we're going to follow. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and subtract 20 from both sides of the equation. When we do that, 14 take away 20 is going to be a negative 6. Equal sign drops down. 20 take away 20 is 0. And this minus 2x drops down. That was the first step. Now I need to divide by negative 2. So I'll divide both sides by this minus or negative 2. And I get 1x. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. 6 divided by 2 is 3. My answer is x equals 3. Let's move on to the next problem. Now we're going to have question or problem number 4. And it is also, this one's even easier because it's just a one-step equation. The only difference is that it has decimals. So now we have 1.5 times m equals 10.5. Well, since m is being multiplied by 1.5, the solution is going to be to divide both sides by 1.5. And I'm anticipating that most of the errors are made in the division with the decimal. So I'll show you how that should have looked. The top number, or the numerator, always goes into the house, and the bottom number goes outside. We don't divide by decimal numbers. Instead, we move our decimal number until we get a whole number. So I moved it over once to get a 15, so I have to move it once over here, and now it's 105. 15 will not go into 1. 15 will not go into 10, but 15 will go into 105. Let's see. What is it? Just to save some time, because I did not memorize this answer. 105 divided by 15 equals 7. There we go. And just to prove it, 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10. So there we go. Our answer was 7, or 7 points if you're bubbling it in. You could put a 0 if you want to afterwards. It won't change your answer one bit if you did that. All right, let's go ahead now and move on to our next problem on the next page, number 5. This also is a one-step problem. And I'm going to speculate to say that the biggest mistake was trying to clear up that fraction. So I'll show you how it should have been done. You have, first of all, 3/4 times t equals 12. When we did our review the day before, I told you guys that to clear up fraction coefficients, you multiply times the reciprocal. So both sides of my equation are going to get multiplied times the reciprocal, which is 4/3. I'll go ahead and show that to you now. When you multiply 4/3 times 3/4 over here on the left-hand side, 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 4 is 12, and you have t. 12 over 12 is 1, so that's the same thing as 1t, or just t. So now we have t by itself on the left-hand side. I got to do the stuff on the right-hand side. I'll make this a fraction. 12 times 4 is 36. 1 times 3 is 3. 36 divided by 3 is going to be 12. Therefore, my answer is just 12. My bad, not 12. It's going to be, let's see, 16 divided by 3 is 12. That's what I get here. And I feel like there's something I did wrong. That's what I did. I see where my error is. So let me go ahead and fix this. I messed up right here. Actually, this was right. My math was wrong. 12 times 4 is 48, and I do apologize for that. And 1 times 3 is 3. There we go. When we divide 48 by 3, we get 16. Therefore, t equals 16. That sounds a lot better and makes a lot more sense, because we're only taking part of a number, and that part of the number has to equal 12, which means it has to be bigger than 12, and that's how we get 16. Now for the next problem, number 6. So here's the story we have going on. It costs $24 to attend the clinic, so we know that we have to pay the $24. That's not negotiable. Also, we are going to be buying buckets of golf balls, and each bucket costs $6 each. The problem is we don't know how many buckets we're buying, so we'll call that B, because it's $6 times however many buckets we end up buying. We know that the $24 we're paying plus the $6 per bucket cannot go over $60. This problem was in your review, and it's solved the exact same way. This is just a two-step problem. We'll go ahead and remove this positive 24 by subtracting $24 from both sides. I'll do it here and on this side. When I do that, 24 minus 24 is 0. The 6b, or the $6 times b, just drops down. Equal sign drops down. 60 minus 24 is going to be 36. Whoops, $36. Now I just divide both sides by 6 because it costs $6 per bucket of golf balls. And if I only had 60 and I spent 24 just to get an appointment with the local pro, then all I have left is $36. Those $36 can be used to buy buckets of golf balls, which cost $6 each. So in order to figure out how many golf ball buckets I could buy, I divide 36 by 6 and I get 6, which is choice F right here. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 7. I'm going to erase some of the stuff I wrote to have a little more space. Actually, I'll erase all of it. And I'll go ahead and move it up just a bit. So for number 7, oops, let me clear that up there. There we go. So number 7, we have 15 times x minus 4 equals 75. In chapter 7, we learned that when we have numbers in front of parentheses, we have to divide them out to get rid of them. So since 15 is multiplying everything over here, I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide by 15. Excuse that mark I made right here. That's not a sign. That's just a stray mark. 15 divided by 15 is 1. So I'm left with just x minus 4 because these canceled out to 1. 75 divided by 15 is, let's see, 15, 30, 45, 60. It's going to be 5. Now, these parentheses don't separate anything anymore, so I can kind of just drop them. X minus 4 equals 5, so I'm going to have to add 4 to both sides to figure out what my mystery number is. And I get x equals 9, which was choice A. We're about halfway through the exam, and hopefully you haven't missed too many at this point. If you have, hopefully you learned something about the mistakes you made. Let's move on. Number 8. This one is solved exactly the same way like the last problem was, and a little bit of the problem before. So I'll go ahead and actually I'll make my box right here. And then I'll go ahead and explain how we're going to solve this. So let's rewrite the equation first. 3/4 times x plus 7 equals 6. We told you 2 or 3 problems ago, to clear up fraction coefficients, you have to multiply times the reciprocal. Now, when we multiply a fraction times its reciprocal, we get a 1. So I have 1 times this thing right here. Well, 1 times this is just this, x plus 7. Multiplying times 1 doesn't change anything. Now, I need a fraction here, so I'll put this over 1. On the numerator, 6 times 4 is 24. In the denominator, 1 times 3 is 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8. That means some number plus 7 has to equal 8. Well, we can kind of tell what it is already, but we have to prove it with algebra. So I subtract 7 from both sides, and I end up getting x equals 1, which we see here was choice F. Moving on, let's go ahead and go now to number 9. Number 9 says 2x minus 3 is greater than 11. Here's the first of our inequalities. So let's begin by rewriting the inequality. 2x minus 3 is greater than 11. Just like our two-step problems, we have to describe what's happening to x. Being multiplied by 2, subtracting 3. The inverse is to divide by 2 and add 3. These are the 2 steps I'm going to follow. We always clear up any addition and subtraction first, which means I will add 3 to both sides. Now I have 2x is greater than 11 plus 3, which is 14. I did this first step. Now I do the next step, which is to divide by 2. So I'll divide the left side by 2 and the right side by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1x. The sign doesn't change because I was not dividing by a negative number. 14 divided by 2 is 7. X is greater than 7. That would now be choice B. Moving on, let's go to the inequality for problem number 10. Number 10 is done in much the same exact way. We have 3x plus 10 is greater than 43. If I make my little t-chart, I see x is being multiplied times 3 and added by 10. The inverse is to divide by 3 and subtract 10. These are the 2 steps I'm going to use to follow or to solve my equation. I always get rid of addition and subtraction first, which means I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And I keep saying equation. I misspoke. It's actually an inequality. Once you have this symbol, it's called an inequality. So I misspoke. So continuing on in solving my inequality, the 3x comes down. Plus 10 minus 10 is 0. My symbol stays the same direction. 43 minus 10 is 33. I've done the first step. Now I'm left to just divide by 3. So I'll divide this by 3 and divide this by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1x. My symbol stays the same direction. 33 divided by 3 is 11. X has to be greater than 11. That's choice number H. Moving on to the next problem. We have number 11. Negative 8x minus 10 is greater than negative 14. So negative 8x minus 10 greater than negative 14. What's happening to x? Let's talk about it. We're being multiplied times negative 8, and we're subtracting 10. The inverse is to divide by negative 8 and to add 10. These are the first two steps, or the only two steps I'm going to use to solve my problem. Always start off with doing the adding or subtracting first. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides. The negative 8x drops down. Minus 10 plus 10 is 0. The symbol drops down. If I owed you $14, but then I got $10 to pay you back, I'm left just owing you $4. Now I have to do the last step, which is to divide by negative 8. So I'll divide both sides by negative 8. When you divide negative 8 by negative 8, you get a 1x. But because I divided by a negative number, my sign does a flip, because that was the rule we learned in chapter 7. Whenever you multiply or divide an inequality by a negative number, your sign must flip direction. Negative 4/8. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. 4 over 8 can be simplified to the fraction 1/2. So x is less than 1/2. That is choice C for problem number 11. Moving on, let's go down to number 12. Here we have a rental company, and this is a word problem. We know that we have to pay, in order to use this rental company's services, we're going to have to first pay $45 just to use the service, plus $15 for every hour to rent a scary clown. Why anyone would want to do that, I have no idea. But this is exactly like the golf ball problem we had. Now we know we have a total of $360 we could spend. It's going to be solved just like any other two-step problem and exactly like the golf problem. We know that we have H, the number of hours we're allowed to rent the clown for. We know that we have a positive 45, or that we're adding 45, and that we're multiplying times 15. The opposites are to subtract 45 and divide by 15. These are the two steps we're going to use to solve our problem, but like I said, addition and subtraction always comes first. So in this case, I'm going to subtract 45 first from both sides. I'll subtract $45 from the left, and I'll subtract $45 from the right. 45 minus 45 is 0, so I'm left with the $15 for every hour that we rent the clown, equals 360 minus 45 is $315. Now I have to do the next step, which is to divide both sides by 15. By $15, excuse me. So 15 divided by 15 is 1H. 315 divided by 15. Let's go ahead and just do the math. 15 will not go into 3, but it will go into 32 times. 31 minus 30 is 1. Drop the 5. It goes in one time with no remainder. So H equals 21. H represents hours, so the answer should be you can rent the clown for up to or less than 21 hours. So here we can rent the clown for X. X, the number of hours we can have the clown, has to be less than, because we can't have it for more than we could afford, less than or equal to 21 hours, not clowns, because the H represents hours. That's what we're trying to measure here. And that was the point of this question, is when you get the answer, do you know what the answer means? And if you got 21, you had to differentiate between whether I was measuring hours or the number of clowns we were allowed to rent. In this case, it was just hours. Next problem. We are almost done with this, so please just bear with me. Number 13. Use the figure to answer the following questions. Here's we get into some basic geometry. Name a pair of vertical angles. Vertical means they're opposite, like opposite in that direction, opposite in that direction. Usually they just share one point. That's about it. So let's go through this. Angle LPO, here to here to here, and angle NOP. That's not even an angle, so that can't work. Angle LPO and angle LPM. These two are next to each other. They're adjacent and not vertical, so that doesn't work either. Angle LPO and angle MPN, this angle and this angle are indeed vertical, so that is our answer. Moving on to number 14. We have the same picture again. Now they want a pair of adjacent angles. Adjacent means next to each other. So we begin again. LPM, L to P to M, and OPN, OPN. Those are vertical angles and not adjacent. Angle NPO, that's going to be from N to P to O, and MPL, M to P to L. Those two are also vertical and not next to each other. Next we have okay, sorry for the confusion there. Now let's continue. Adjacent angles. Now next we have angle, and I believe it says here MPN, so that's from M, whoops, I get my pen going, M to P to N, that's right here, and angle NPM. And it's the same angle written backwards. It's the same angle, so it can't be adjacent to itself. Finally, we have angle L to P to M, which is that one, and then we have angle L to P to O. These two angles are adjacent, so this is our correct answer. And finally, moving on to question number 15. The last one. Here we have a right triangle, and most of you guys have identified that. We need to write an equation to determine the value of x. So all right triangles, or any triangle, has to always equal 180 degrees when you add up all three angles. So we have x, which is the one we don't know. We have 42. And then we have 90 degrees, excuse me. Well, I don't know what x is yet, but I sure can add these numbers. 90 plus 42 degrees is 132 degrees. So, first of all, I know that all the angles, when I add, the sum of all angles in a triangle have to equal 180. So I need three angles that equal 180. This one says equals 90, so that's wrong. This one says equals 90, so that one's wrong. Now I'm down to two choices. I have 42 plus x plus 90, which is what my picture shows me, equals 180. Or if I combined it like I did here, I have x plus 32 equals 180. So both of these are right so far. Now it depends which one's the right answer. In order to do that, I'm going to have to solve this equation. I'll go ahead and subtract 132 degrees from both sides. And I get x equals 180 minus 132 is going to be 48. Let's make sure, because sometimes my math's been off a little bit apparently this afternoon. 10 minus 2 is 8, 7 minus 3 is 4, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So there's the one with the right answer. So choice D is the correct option. Those are your solutions for the 9 weeks exam. Like I said, do your corrections, and you have as early as Thursday afternoon to come in to retest. You can also come in Friday morning, and if you can make it then, you can talk to me Friday, and I can make arrangements to maybe stay after school on Friday afternoon to let you retest. It's up to you, but this is the last chance you're going to have to change this 9 weeks grade. Good luck, guys.